Hello, everyone, and welcome into another fun-filled episode with the Jason Adams. So, why I decided to do this video today is because I had the time to settle in for some basic information on the modernist jewelry movement. Thank you so much for liking and subscribing the videos. Thank you so much for sharing me out. I really appreciate the love and attention that my videos have been getting. The numbers are way up. My paychecks are way up. That's just full transparency. And you make me feel very important and you make me feel like a rock star. And I hope I do the same for all of you. This will probably be one of at least 7 or 8 or maybe 10 or 12 or 15 videos, who knows at this point, on modernist jewelry, okay? So the modernist movement really took hold in the 20th century. And why I say this is, it had roots in much earlier times. For historians and jewelers and collectors and designers, sometimes uncomfortable information is difficult to digest, even for myself. So we'll get into that in just a few moments, but I was very deeply inspired by the modernist jewelry movement of the 1950s. We're going to talk mainly today about the 1950s and the 1970s, through the 1970s. In later videos, when I get more in depth and I don't stay on the surface of the information, the very surfacey information right on the top of the water, we'll take a much deeper dive as a diver into more in-depth information in coming videos. We're going to start off very simply today by stating what the modernist jewelry movement was about. This brooch had been in my previous video on brutalist jewelry because it's slightly transitional between brutalist and modernist. It's made in the late 1970s or into the 1980s and has that reticulated sheet of sterling silver, kind of that self-applied, I have to focus, there we go, self-applied pin stem on this side, all artisan constructed all the way through, from the pin mechanisms through the design of the brooch, but that marries brutalism and modernism together in so many ways. So, when you ask about the inspiration for my art, I'm only going to show you 2 pieces of probably, at this point I would say I have over 90 pieces that were very reminiscent and very inspired by mid-century modern in jewelry. My bracelet I wear every day was constructed by me. I've had this on since 2000 or 2001. I've not had this off in now 25 years. I have never had this bracelet off. Even when I was in the hospital for a small surgery, I had this on and they said I had to take it off. And I said, you'll wrap that in cotton and put tape around it because I'm not taking it off. And I didn't. So modernist jewelry has this very sculptural quality. And I will say this, very much so distilled down in form. Why I show you this one is, this is the ring I made out of tubing. Again, you've seen it about 3 or 4 times. You're probably tired of seeing it. But I oxidized this to make this look like steel in this kind of jumbled mess of tubes. Someone had told me, you can't make a ring out of tubing. You have to put a shank on a ring, like a normal shank. You can't make a ring out of tubing. And I said, you most certainly can. So I made this ring completely out of tubing. And why I show you this is, we'll leave this off to the side for a moment. I was very much so inspired by the Israeli artist Rachel GERA. And Rachel's work, I had looked at it and collected it while I was in college. I had very moderate money back then, so I always looked for a bargain at the thrift stores, antique stores, storage unit auctions. I'll never forget sometimes down in Merriman Valley in Akron, some of the storage units I got into back in the day. Jewelry jars, we've talked about that before, and my decades of digging through kind of broken pieces and parts and pulling out things that weren't revered by the thrift and Goodwill, Salvation Army, Abbey Ann's, the list rolls on of all the stores that I went to back in the day. And I'll say this much, these videos have given me such fond memories of building a collection and making a living by reselling antiques, jewelry, artwork, all the way through college. And I graduated college in 1997. So I think my first trip to the thrift was probably 1989, I would say, or 1988, when I was wearing vintage clothes to school like nobody else was and thought I was the coolest kid ever. So this is sterling silver. I made this, I borrowed this cuff. This was an older cuff, and I had used a lot of older pieces in my work, or vintage, because I bought the cuff for like 50 cents because it's sterling silver, and it was like 50 cents at the thrift. I think, oh yeah, it was signed. That was 50 cents. Oh no, I did sign this to him. Oh, I did sign this to him. All right, now I'm remembering. This has been a long time ago, but this is to one of my friends at the time, and he was one of my models for my photographs. And I made this bracelet for him, and sterling silver, and then I applied these silver bars that went across. Very bold, very geometric, and again, inspired by modernism. You know, it very much so deeply inspired, and I really loved that design of having that kind of negative space here, but super directional. So that was one of my originals as well. I'm borrowing from the past. I want to thank you all again. I don't know if I thanked you early on, but thanks again for joining in. While we talk about modernism, I guess I could show this one next because, yeah, we'll show this one next. This has been with me for a long time, and I had mentioned Yakov Heller the other day, and there was some research that I did on this. Let's see what, oh wow, this was in 2010. I had printed this information about Yakov Heller, and I did some, I always tried to take the deep dive. If I couldn't find a designer in my books, I took the deep dive online, but I didn't stay on the surface. I wanted everything about them. I didn't just want the Wikipedia thing or whatever that was. But in 2010, I went online and I did some research, and it says he was born in Cleveland in 1941. So it doesn't surprise me that I found this set in Cleveland Heights is where I found this set. And there was a whole bunch of information on his sculptures, him as an artist, and documentation of him and his life and his work. This is electroformed sterling silver, so it is actually a silver, like a thin sheet over a wax body. So that is electroformed. So the wax is carved as a sculpture, and then this is then put into an electrochemical bath. Two leads are put on it. I don't know if those are called, are they? No, I'm going to screw up the term. I'm not going to say it. I'm not going to do it because I don't want to be corrected. This, you put a lead here, you put a lead here, you put it inside of the chemical bath, and then you turn on the electricity on the wires, and then the electrodes grow the silver to the surface. So it's an electrochemical process of depositing sterling silver on a wax body. How do I know this? Because we did electroforming in college. I wasn't a fan of it. I felt it, again, I don't want to be offensive to people that love electroforming. I felt it lazy and distant and very cold. I understood the process to get much more dimension and much more depth to a piece, but I didn't feel like I was in control. I am an additive artist. I put tubing and rod stock and sheet together. I do pierce work. I solder things. I construct things. I never quite understood the distance between carving something out of wax, putting it in a bath, not being able to control that environment. Maybe that's what I just learned about myself. I'm a control freak. Maybe there is truth in jest as well. So anyways, electroformed sterling silver. It is signed. Let's see here. I don't know why I'm in such a panic. Well, I know why. Because I only picked out certain pieces for today, and there is no way I'm going to be able to get through. There it is. And script signed, by the way. There's no way I'm going to be able to get through all these items on my desk. And like I said, there's probably going to be there's probably going to be at least 10 or 15 videos on modernism. And then I didn't quite understand the flimsiness of this to finish the back of this. this bothered me, but that's original to the piece. But as a designer, that really bothered me. This was fabulous in the front around the neck, and then this really bothers me. I shouldn't judge it, but it just really bothers me. Maybe that's the distance thing again, or a craft issue. I'm not sure exactly what that is. I shouldn't give my opinions in my videos. I should keep them factual, but I can't help myself because I'm an artist. And artists are sometimes the most critical people we know. We don't like to be judged, but we'll sure judge other people. This is Yakov Heller's signature again, sterling silver. You can see where one of those, I think it's no, I'm not going to say it again. I almost said it, and I know it's not going to come out right. That's where one of the leads went in and sunk down into the silver and right into that wax body. But you can feel that wax under here. You know, some people sell these as solid silver, and they're not. You know, you can't base that on weight. But look at the design of that bracelet with that intertwining couple, male and female, sculptural and gorgeous. I loved that he is silver tone and she is gold tone. Very much so god and goddess. Very, very dynamic and extremely well detailed. Love the detail on the inside. I will say the little toes and the little soles of the feet. The attention to detail, and modernist jewelry was very much so a labor of love. Most of it produced extensively by hand. And I love that set. So bangle bracelet and a collar necklace. So be on the lookout for Yakov Heller's work. It has kind of stabilized in value. There was a lot of up and down with that for many, many years. I don't know where to head next, but you've seen this before. This is BJORN WECKSTROM, who designed Princess Leia's necklace in the Star Wars movie. And this one is the Mexican version of Modernist. So I have about, I don't know, 300 or 400 modern silver necklaces that I could show. These were the only two that I had access to today in my haste of throwing this video together. And oh, full transparency, we had a sale last night. I didn't get much sleep today, and I'm doing this without any notes whatsoever. Not a single note written down, no names, no dates, no information. I'm just going because I wanted to produce a video for all of you and show you the intro to modernism in wearable art jewelry. And it's much so wearable art jewelry. Doesn't that look like it could be a large sculpture for a corporation? I think these were, yeah, these are synthetic stones. Those are not amethyst. So be careful on the stones. It doesn't much matter in this, but completely hand constructed. Here is all the artist information way up in here. There we go. The eagle mark and all the information on the artist. Didn't matter on the artist on this one as much as the construction for me. So we'll talk about artists more in depth in the coming videos. We're not going to get into that in this video. I will say this much. If you can't tell already, in modernism, it was very much so based on abstraction, kind of cubist designs in a way. That's what made me think of mentioning cubism and that distillation of form. The distillation of making something so bold and so simple, almost an abstraction. Almost an abstraction. Deeply rooted in technological innovations and advances of the 20th century. Here's where the uncomfortable part needs to be mentioned. Modernism took hold much earlier than historians like to admit. And the reason why I say this is historians and jewelers would be slightly uncomfortable admitting that, how do I say this? All right, let's think about the Crystal Palace that was built in 1854. Look at that building and tell me if that is not modernism, because it most certainly is. And I said 1854, I didn't say 1954. Can we also talk about, let me think here in my mind. Well, yes, I'll say this. The Dance, the painting called The Dance. It was by Henri Matisse, and I think it's circa 1910. 1910, and it looks like that. So there was something brewing. There was something happening. For 1910 to look like that, it looks like it could have been painted in 1970. So there is a nod to modernism much earlier than people like to admit. There really is. And I am one of them. I don't like to admit that. It makes me uncomfortable to think that modernism was starting much earlier than the 20th century. Let's face it, it really was. So this one is fully signed by BJORN WECKSTROM. And BJORN WECKSTROM did design Princess Leia's collar necklace. I do have, I'm trying to think of how many of this version I have, but they're always different. Let me show you some of BJORN's rings. Let's do that. Let's bring out, here, let's go in this box. And, no, I'll just move this one out. So now you kind of understand, modernism didn't stop across borders. I was in Finland, Denmark, a lot of Scandinavian countries, Germany, Paris, Mexico, America, it didn't, it's like, it was all over the globe. So modernism in different places looks slightly different. I think I'm getting a little too deep in this video. I said I was only going to talk about the designs. And here I go with a full-blown lecture series. No one has ever seen this in any of my videos. This is one of the Spacemen by BJORN WECKSTROM. Look at that little man down in there embracing these kind of bubbles or out of this world. Fully signed down in here with the date letter, BJORN WECKSTROM. Look at the sculptural nature of that, and look what it looks like on the finger. Is that not pure magic? Then you'll see some of the and I don't mean to say it this way, but you will see a lot of chintzier, new silver that's a nod to modernism, and it just doesn't have the vibe. It just doesn't have the energy. Sure, it's fashionable. Sure, it's wearable. Sure, it's fantastic in its own right. But look how BJORN WECKSTROM designed that arc of the acrylic to make this the most comfortable and silky smooth ring. And look how this fits the contour of the hand. When we talk about comfort on the body, I have never worn a piece of vintage, truly vintage, modernist jewelry that was uncomfortable. I'll say it that way. And that's from my experience. Look at the way this is constructed. A work of miniature art as well. I could talk about that one forever. Let's go here. And I have I have so many more BJORN WECKSTROM rings. This is a note from a long time ago. I hope it's clean. Meaning, sometimes I did write swear words down on some of my notes. I don't know why, but I did. This is BJORN WECKSTROM. And these all have names, by the way. All these designs have names, and signed down in here. Look at the sculptural quality. Almost brutalist instead of modernist, almost brutalist because the raw edge, but it's a little bit more modern because it's not as rough and rugged. It has that kind of folded or ice. It reminded me of an ice flow in a way, or like a glacier, very energetic, and again, it fits extremely well. I do lose track of my words, but I love the asymmetry of where that little lucite or acrylic piece comes out, and it is dyed from behind. There is always some sort of dye or resin that is colored that is down in there to give that internal glow of green. Look how it peeks out over that. Isn't that incredible to see this? I don't know how to explain my affection for BJORN's designs. Let's see what this note says. Oh, it was in Warman's book. Here we go. Here's some notes. Look at my writing even back when. I think I was always a doctor. Christy Romero, Warman's Jewelry, page that, info. I don't know the BJORN WECKSTROM considered one of the, I can't even read this, the most innovative Finnish designers of the 1960s. Oh yeah, here it says 1977, Carrie Fisher wore the necklace of his Star Wars theme. Date letter V7 for 1974. So I was doing LAPPONIA, of course, produced by LAPPONIA. Finnish mark, crown in the, what does that say, art? I don't know what that says. But there's a crown mark for the Finnish mark. And I'll get into all the marks in a later video when I can kind of settle down. This was, again, only based on design. I'm glad I showed you one of my notes from, that was probably, or 16 years ago. That was from my old office because I had this old like scrolled paper thing. And by the way, I live with all old things. I really do. I never had Post-it notes back then. I just had this like, you know, the grocery things or whatever. You'd write your grocery list on your desk and had the metal thing, had a little slant on it, and it had the metal thing, and you'd pull the paper like a roll. There was like a roll of paper up here and you'd pull it through and then you would tear it off at the end. Well, that's what I was always writing these on because that's all I had on my desk at the time. Thank you for keeping with me today. I feel like I'm finally calming down. But last night I was so amped up, we almost had a sellout. After the sale was over, we got an email and sold 2 more pieces. So now we're only down to 3 lots that weren't sold. So we thank you all so much, and we had so much fun. I don't think we've laughed that hard in a long time. Oh, I was on pure idiot mode. I really was. I was purely an idiot. It was fun, though. We like to laugh. This is the BJORN WECKSTROM mark down in. I wish I could show you these marks up close, but there's the LAPPONIA mark right there. And then, again, I think this one was called... No, this one's not called Wedge. I forget what this is called. This one has a name too. I'll have to bring these back on. So don't be surprised if you see some of these in future videos, but I love the way this metal embraced that. Look how modernism is sculptural. Modernist jewelry is very much so about wearable sculpture. Again, asymmetrical on the finger. I love this BJORN WECKSTROM rings. That's all I can say. I think I can bring on more. So if you say more BJORN WECKSTROM rings in the comments, I will absolutely bring on more BJORN WECKSTROM rings. Look how yellow those bags were. And I don't normally store my things in plastic bags, but the reason why these were, well, it's a long story. So when people ask me how I store my items, I don't customarily store them in plastic bags. I like my things to breathe. I like my things to have their space, and I like them to stay safe. We'll move this out of the way, but that's modernism 100%. Oh, these cufflinks, these are just modernist. I never figured them out who made these, but I should have. These are definitely American modernism to me. They were $54 back in the day, and sterling silver, but extremely heavy. But I showed these to you for construction, completely hand wrought out of sterling silver. Nothing is cast in these. Those BJORN WECKSTROM rings were actually cast in sterling silver, and then these were completely hand fabricated. So all these pieces you see are separate pieces of silver, a labor of love. And what I was trained to do in school. So those I didn't do any research on. What is this? I don't know what this one is. Let's see. I should have done this differently. I should have only done it on, maybe I should have done this video on just rings. No, or pins, or necklaces. This one is 2 rings in one, and it fits like that on the fingers, like down here. And it is some sort of massive, I thought it was amber back in the day. Yeah, and oh yeah, it is. That's amber. And yeah, and look at the crazing through that. And that artist didn't care at all. Totally used that. Look how it floats inside of that mounting. Talk about bold and courageous. See, this one fit down here on me years ago, and then it's a 2-finger ring, but see how that floats then on the hand, that it seems like there's no band keeping that together? What on God's green earth for a sculpture, a wearable sculpture? Then we see the modern versions of this, and we just go, yeah, I don't get it. It doesn't have the same heft to it. This one came from Penland School of Design. And I'll get into the designer on this one in future videos. But yeah, that, I don't know, I could talk about that forever. But that's modernist at its best. Very much so distilled down, very abstract. Could we talk about other artists? We sure could. We could talk about, let's see here. I could mention sculptures by Henry Moore, I'm sorry. Like Henry Moore. I was thinking of, when I said that, I was thinking of Arnie, Akison? Yeah, Akison. Arnie Akison, who did furniture design. I'm sure I didn't do that right. Eros Sarnin, Charles and Ray Eames for mid-century modern furniture. So we could talk about like the furniture part of it. Paintings, you know, Pablo Picasso, Jackson Pollock. You can name all the modernist painters who are really well known. And then when I mentioned sculptures, and I said, like Henry Moore, those big, oversized, very textured, very abstract human forms. Normally two together, sometimes one by itself. But when you go to the modern museums of art, I didn't really get into the op art part of it. That's where I kind of started to lose interest. With op art. I don't know why. I just felt cold, clinical, distant. I didn't feel that connection to the labor of love. I guess op art was maybe more so about the process than the end result, if that's okay, like more conceptual art, which I really got lost in for a long time. And then Harry Bertoia. That's another video that I'll do on Harry Bertoia. I brought brooches in, and we'll just go through these really quick. This is Scandinavian sterling silver. That is a classic example of modernism at its best. We'll get into all these hallmarks in future videos, and also values and what to look for in modernist jewelry. But this was just to show you the forms and the pieces that I picked. And this is, I should have said this, this is a lot of items out of my personal collection. A lot of people say, have you ever worn any of these? Nope, I have not, but I love them very much. This is rock crystal that is a dual formation, and then set in sterling silver. Very much so modern, very much so artisan constructed. If we talked about the American art movement of the 1950s, the 1960s, we could go there. We could talk about Art Smith. I don't, Margaret Zapata in California, Marianne Scheer. This is a Marianne Scheer. Very much so modernist and brutalist at the same time. Much more brutalist sensitivity because of the surface on this. So this kind of bridges the gap between brutalism and modernism. This one is signed somewhere. I bought this at the thrift store for $8 years ago. Where's this one marked? They missed the mark on. Here we go. Yeah, it's. I always say look close. Sterling and Scheer. Maryanne Scheer. If you see that mark Scheer, it's a definite, it's a pickup, because she was a local artist at Kent State. Maryanne Scheer had such a sensitivity, and this is completely hand constructed by Maryanne Scheer. That's not cast at all. That's one of her originals. Really beautiful sterling silver pendant. Very explosive, very dynamic in that design. And the surface, how it's hand engraved, very well thought out. Love the oxidation on that. I'll never polish it in a million years. This one is slightly newer, so this goes into the 80s. And why I show you this is because it was missing its bottom drop. So this is a pearl that I found, and then I made a sterling silver bail, and then I oxidized it to fit that pendant perfectly, to give that exclamation point. Natural formed pearl, really beautiful. So I had to finish this because it was missing its bottom drop. Look at the mixed metals and the way that's hammered. So both modernist and brutalist at the same time, made in the late 1980s. I think this one might be dated. No. And I know this one is signed somewhere. What a shame that I didn't write down notes. But that's what you get. You know, that's what you get when I don't write down a couple little things to remember to say. But I think I'm doing quite well today, even with such little sleep. But I knew I had to do a video. And like I said, let this be one of how many. This I want to talk about in future videos. I'll show you this for design. I'm going to leave the designer information out for right now. And the reason why I say this is, okay, this is either a $100 brooch or it's about a $9,000 brooch. So I'm not going to go there. I'm not going to say anything else. I'm just going to say there's a huge swing in value on this, depending on the designer. Completely unsigned. So again, it would be an attributed work, but I'm working on it. I am working on this. I am in the process of, I've had this for about 3 years. And yeah, I'm just going to say that when you see something like that, take the chance. Just take the chance, please. I ask you to. I just love this brass and sterling silver, and I love those two discs on the side that articulate. Boy, I lose my mind when I see that one. You know, when you feel the vibe on something and you know that it's just great. Some people don't. It's okay. It takes us a while. I don't know every single time I touch something. I don't know if I've shown this one before, but where's the maker's mark on this one? It's here somewhere. You're probably seeing it. Oh, right here. Down here at the very, very tip. And I loved that for modernism. That's classic modernism. I would say of the brooches so far, this would be the most classic of the studio movement of the modern movement. The studio design and craft of the modernist movement. See how that metal kind of bends into this other form? And that kind of soft bone-like shape of that, like a hip bone. very biomorphic in a way on this one. Very much so. And that stone. So notice the way the stones are cut as well. I guess I should have mentioned that as I was going. This one's definitely more brutalist. I guess this one made it in by accident. But very sculptural like 50s. But that raw and unfinished kind of lava flow pour of that silver. And then this awesome cultured pearl kind of squeezing out of that like crumpled bag of silver. Very, very deep. Extremely heavy. And is this one signed? That very well is signed right there. I don't think I ever found the artist on this one. And I didn't care. There's probably a signature there too. I didn't care. Pay attention to the marks though, because it does matter. And unsigned work can be worth 10 times or 30 times what a signed work is worth. And that was mentioned in one of my past videos on the Bratoya brooch that I own. This is JENSEN, George JENSEN. And there's the model number. This does have a name, and I forget if it's like Swoop or Puzzle. I don't remember on this one. And it's okay. Amoeba, maybe. No, the amoeba looks different than that. But see how sculptural and biomorphic and smooth? That's definitely modernism, that egg shape, dynamic shapes, and asymmetry. A lot of asymmetry in mid-century modern items. I forget the date that one was produced. Then we go into slightly more symmetrical. But look how bold. That's N.E. from Denmark. Let me make sure that it's fully hallmarked before I make a mistake. I'm going on memory here. Yeah, N.E. from Denmark. And From's work is really beautiful. Those are just discs that are punched, die punched, and then soldered into another disc, and then a beautiful sphere of silver on the inside. Very simple. You'll see in modernism, very simple and very, like I mentioned, cubism before. Like I had mentioned the nod or the parallel to cubism. This one's Rachel GERA, and this one is this one signed on the... It's really hard to find the signature. So again, go slow on these. It's signed somewhere here. Look at this, though. Look at the way that is constructed for, again, a more brutalist brooch. Guess I wish I would have had this for the last one. And what a good comparison. So let's do it. Let's do it now. Brutalism and here, we'll do it. Brutalism and modernism. And this one I had labeled because this was in an exhibition. This is by Antonio Pineda. And so yeah, this is Antonio Pineda. This is modernism in Mexico, and this is brutalism in Israel at the time. And or she might have produced this stateside. I'm not exactly sure. Why would anyone know that? I don't know for sure. So we go with modernism and we go with brutalism. So those are two brooches. Let that be a reminder. But guess what? Done approximately around the same time. Was this 1950? Not late 1950s. Was this more 1960s? Maybe 1970s? Absolutely. So, but it's all about the craft and it's all about the skill. And do you know, I can honestly say that I love these equally. I love these the same. I don't know how else to word it, because if I didn't, I wouldn't have bought them and I wouldn't have committed them to my permanent collection. I do have 3 of this brooch. I have 3 of this one because, well, I wanted 3 of them. There's the Antonio Pineda mark, and there's all the 750. Maybe if I said this was sterling, I take it back. It's 750 parts per thousand, so finer than sterling. There's the Antonio crown mark, Tasco, Mexico. Look at those moonstones. All open back set, and what a labor of love to graduate those little forms that are soldered in between with that shadowed finish. Do you know that was originally oxidized like that? So if someone comes in and polishes the hell out of this and goes crazy and makes it all silver, you've completely ruined the intention of the artist. And that's why I say, leave things alone, please. You know, someone else would like dip this in Tarnex, and then they'd say, why does my Antonio brooch look sick and gross and doesn't look like it should have? Because Antonio oxidized in there and gave that surface to this. So if you polish that off, you've undone the hand of the artist. And that's sad and disrespectful. Very sad and disrespectful. All 3 of the ones that I have are relatively the same, but they're all hand constructed. Those are gem grade moonstones. I could look at that for another 4 hours. I haven't seen that one for a while. I almost don't want to send it away into the exhibition. Maybe I'll tell them I lost it in my stuff. No, I won't. I have to be honest. I committed it to the exhibition, so I'll send it. These are all tourmaline. blue-green tourmaline and pink tourmaline and beautifully cast and folded metal. And this might be, yeah, there are some scraps and this is soldered together. This isn't cast. I take it back. I misspoke. This one's not cast. That's all fabricated. Pin pendant. There's the pendant part. I think that would be a stunning pendant. And of course, everyone would run to put it on a torque. I would never wear that on a torque. Never in a million years. And never. Wouldn't do it. This is HOGAN BOLAS. We'll do another video on HOGAN BOLAS. HOGAN BOLAS, great maker, wonderful producer, always has great craft, and you can pick these up for like no money now. HOGAN BOLAS, and there is a little bit of a surge in price, but you'll find these at the thrift. They don't know. The thrift stores never know. I have never seen a HOGAN BOLAS priced accordingly at the thrift. Earrings, I guess I could do like a good, better, and best. I don't know, was that what I was going for? These are 80s. These are late 70s, and these are early 60s. So it's kind of a progression. The earliest, the middle, and the newest. And these are NE from. These are also going to be in the exhibition. Yes, they are. These are NE from. And sterling silver, and again, fully hallmarked right there. NE from. Denmark, 925. Rose quartz and sterling silver. Look at the thickness of the metal and how serious these are. Again, distilled down to like that popsicle stick. Almost op art on these. Almost going op art, like wearable sculpture, wearable op art, very distilled down to circle and bar. Really incredible craft, and look at the quality of those stones. I had to have those back in the day, and I think those were at they were at a Fairlawn estate sale that I'll show you a little bit more of here in a minute. And then these earrings, large hammered discs with then these amethyst bullet-shaped things on the ends. How much were these back in the day? Probably like, what? Oh, they were $125. Yeah, but I paid $50 for them. That needs to be cleaned. It's just some oxidation on the surface. Look at the amethyst bullet-shaped cabochons, and see how that fits on the ear? See how that like goes there, then this disc rolls around, and the amethyst peeks out over the back of it. Could those be any more sculptural and any more cool? Those are just, I lose my mind on the design of some of these things. And then that one goes there. Just really well done and very well thought out. Completely hand constructed in sterling silver. I don't remember where I got those. I really don't. I've lost track. That was definitely not a thrift store price back in the day, but it's proof I wasn't afraid to pay the price. I know I can make money on them still to this day. Anodized aluminum. And I'm not sure on the artist, but we're doing a little bit of research on these. But that's classic Memphis modern or Memphis movement, however you want to call it. Because there's, we're just starting to put some names on these things, on these movements. But Memphis modern, modernism in Memphis, Memphis designed jewelry. Still, I think people are settling in with some of these terms. I don't know if I agree with it because, after all, I was producing right at the tail end of this movement. So I'm not sure I agree with that, because I've never said I'm a Memphis, school artist. Never. I don't think I would ever define myself that way. I would say I'm a post-romantic artist. I'll say that much. Anodized aluminum, scrolled, like coiled metal. Not sure what the beads are made out of on these. Brass, mixed metal, titanium more than likely, and then lacquered surface on that. Lacquered surface. These are probably airbrushed instead of anodized. These are anodized. These are airbrushed. Yeah, because there's a texture there for the paint. So those are painted. These are painted. That's not anodized. This is anodized right there. So just the little scrolls. So I always can correct myself when I note something that I'm like, whoops. Misspoke, but those are great for 80s modernist. That's, I guess, what we can say. Let's get into some rings and then we'll call it. Now, okay, I should mention Rachel's rings. We'll bring these back eventually, and we'll talk about sculpture and jewelry. We'll bring this bag back. Let's talk about these two, this one and this one, because these two are going to go away. These two are in the show. These two are in the show, and these two... what is this one? No, this one is from the, this one was from that sale in Fairlawn, a long time ago, estate sale, run by my friends. Yeah. Okay. We'll bring this one back to sterling silver, but I bring this on for sculptural and modernist. Look how simple. Distilled down. Very op art, very sculptural. Completely hand constructed out of sterling. And look at the size of that bullet-shaped amethyst cabochon. Very dark, very velvety purple. I loved the color play between that. And again, I said this is the oxidized surface that's original. I should bring these back and say why you shouldn't polish silver. I need to bring this back and say why you shouldn't polish silver. I should bring this back and say why you shouldn't polish sterling silver, because I put that oxidized surface on this, so it looked like steel. So again, you would be undoing the intent of the artist. I need to do a video on why not to polish silver. I need to do it. I just have to do it. I have to. And it's just my opinion. That's all. But in the sake of the history of this piece, that should never be polished out of there, because that was intentional. That surface was 100% intentional. And put down into those dapped cups of silver. Really great construction on this. And I hope you like my videos for showing the up close and personal and showing you the solder seams and the way things are constructed. After all, that's what I did with my work, and I can't get away from that. So hopefully someday I'll be able to stop saying the same terms. But I don't think it's going to happen. Is this NE from? This one should be marked. $20. They had some of these marked, the designer. I think this is... Yep, there we go. Oops. That is NE from again, FROM, and then 925S. And look at the construction on this. So a band that's made, and then that armature that goes under this, and then that box style raised up with that incredible bullet-shaped stone. Bullet-shaped cabochon. Very much so modernist. Again, distilled down to very simple forms. Completely hand-constructed on this as well. As you peer down in and see that box is completely soldered together by hand. Those solder seams are crisp. Can you imagine making a box so small that's so perfectly paneled and then finishing it so wonderful to make that wearable sculpture ring? I will say, paying $20 for this back in the day, that was the first day of the sale. Well, I'll be honest and tell you this is the day that... No, I'm not going to tell the story yet. This is the day at that sale that I completely went absolutely crazy and bought... I think I bought... I don't know if I should admit it. I bought 600 pieces of jewelry. It was all vintage back in that day at the estate sale. Oh, it's Patty Renner. That was it. Patty Renner's sale. I should call Patty and have her come on my channel and explain the frantic nature that I was in when they had this sale out in Fairlawn. I'll bring on some more pieces from that sale. You won't believe it. But anyways, this is just so gorgeous. And I loved how male and how masculine that was in a way. Very directional, very... I don't know. I don't. Its energy is just fantastic, but very much so modernist. This one is later. I think this one is 70s from my memory on the date letter on the inside. Scandinavian. Let's see here. Whoops. It's not going to focus on that mark because it's going to focus on the top of the ring. That's still not going to focus. Let's see here. Is this the Finland one? Made in Finland? Come on. Oh, no, it's not going to focus. I think that's the one that says made in Finland, and I think the date letter. Here we go. All the other hallmarks are over here. Look how many hallmarks there are. There's a date letter in there, and I think it was towards the 70s on memory on this one. Soldered together, and look at that to where they put that little, the connection they were worried about, just soldering a band to the disc, so they put that little bypass there with almost a little spoke or a little knob to hold that down in, and that then contains that to where the post goes in. And look at that little cup that bobbles around, and that's all glass enamel and cobalt. But look at that surface, so directional. Any jewelry that moved back in the day, can you imagine having that on and wearing that, having that bobble around all day? Absolutely stunning designs in modernism, such sculpture and such beauty. Yeah, I could look at that one for another 10 hours. I'll bring that one back on, but that one's going to the show as well. And I have to identify that for the didactic. And you might ask yourself, where's the show? And I might say, I'm not allowed to say. There will be a catalog, though. This is from Penland School of Design. And when you get into sculptural and well-made silver, I could do a whole thing on some of the sculptures that I did in school as well, but I just felt so distant with sculpture because it was off the body. I just felt very distant, and it always frustrated me that I couldn't wear it and enjoy it. But I do have, well, I have a modern sculpture right now that's a Cleveland school artist, and I'm very lucky that I bought it. This is fully hallmarked down here, sterling. This whole piece here is completely hand fabricated. This little kickstand is also hand fabricated, and this box-like form is completely hand soldered together. See the seams there? When people say, well, can you show us fabrication rather than casting? You know, you pick on casting for being lazy. I don't, I don't mean to be offensive, but I was just trained to fabricate. That's all. I just did it different. And there's the solder seams to construct this box-like form. Other artists may choose to electroform that, and that's fine. Other artists may choose to cast that. This has that whole vibe and labor of love. And it is meant to be worn down here on the hand, so it would embrace and kind of hug the hand. Very heavy construction on this. I'll be bringing this back, and that's a Mabe pearl in that electric bluish purple. I hope you're picking up the color in the video, because that is one heck of a beautiful pearl. Really gorgeous luster on that. Very high quality. Love the negative space. You talk about the positive space. I think this one does stand as a sculpture. Yes, it does. So in school, we were taught that when things are off the body, make it look like a sculpture. That actually stands on its own. Let's zoom in a little bit. That actually stands on its own. See how it's like just standing there all on its own as a little tiny sculpture on the table? So that's why that little kickstand is there as well. But I don't think it reads that great any other way. It kind of reads as just a ring if you put it any other way. But you can see that, if you could see this from the side, I wish I could get a picture of that. I'll bring this back to a future video on wearable art and the definition of wearable art. And I just can't get away from it. I guess once you do something, these are Rachel GERA, and these are fantastic. I'll just do a quick once-over of these, and then I'll be bringing these back, because why did I do this back in the day? I bought out a jewelry store. Let's zoom out a little bit. No, I'm zooming in. Zoom out. There we go. All right, so these are all modernist, and I'll be bringing these back. Most of these are Scandinavian, fully hallmarked on the inside, but I'm only showing you these for modernist design. Every single one in this bag is modernist, and I think the earliest is late 50s, and the newest is 1970s. So this goes right in the heart of the wearable art movement. Look at that one. I have another one like this somewhere else. You'll have to eventually remind me to get the rectangular version of that. It's much, much larger. Yep. Oh, boy. That one speaks to me. They all speak to me, or I wouldn't have bought them. These are old price tags from the store. This one was $10. Does anyone want to buy this Modernist Beauty for $10? Psych. It's going to be a lot more now. That was on sale. That was $20 originally in the 70s, and then it got marked down to $10. That's the original price tag for it, because I know the store these came out of, fully hallmarked down on the inside. Look at those discs. And again, you can see that oxidation is original. The artist intentionally put that there. If you get rid of it, it's almost sacrilege. Oh, this is my favorite one. This is my favorite one. This was $11.50. And that's a lot of money in the 70s. If this was purchased in the 70s, that's a whole lot of money in the 70s. Very small size. Love the directional nature of that. And they soldered this together. Doesn't that look like a corporate sculpture? Like, that looks like a giant... See, this is why I'm saying the sculptures were so distant to me, but they put the sculpture on the finger. I'm all in. I'm all in. And then that armature disappears. So all it looks like are those discs that are floating on the hand and floating on the finger. Wow. I forgot about that one. That was $11.50. Interesting. And I do have... I think I have 9 more of these somewhere else in another bag. And then this one was... See, this one was more because it's more complex. This one was $30, and then it was marked down to $15. And, yeah. Oh, I guess I could make a comment on the 2 jewelry stores that I did buy out in a late... One I bought out in the late 90s, and one I bought out in the early 2000s. Yeah, that one's hallmarked down in there. I can't read it. Maybe you can, but we'll bring these back. I shouldn't have spent so long on these, but I wanted to share that design. So now we're pretty clear on what the modernist movement was about. And we'll scoot these out of the way. Let me put these back in this other, well, I have this other little bag. Let me put them in here for now. Thank you all for joining in. And sorry if I sound a little sinusy, because I am. I'm not getting sick. These are Rachel GERA, and I don't think these are going to the show. I think these are not going to the show, so I need to rebag these. All right, we'll bring these 3 back as well. Just do a quick once-over of Rachel GERA's work, because I have another, I don't know how many, don't ask, I lost count. But these are the most extraordinary things. And this came from Etty Ukas's estate. And I'll talk about Etty. I'll talk about Etty for sure, because I can't leave her out. This came from Etty's collection, and she wrote a book, and there's some sort of connection between me and her that I can't explain, but this is one of Etty's rings. You know how big my hands are. Look at the size of that ring for a courageous soul to wear and to enjoy. Look at the size of it with these pearls, and then that just goes on forever on the inside. Other people try and describe these things, and then I just say, you know, I'm going to let you take that in and figure out why these wearable sculptures are miniature monuments, really. They're miniature monuments to a life well lived. Artistic courage. There's a lot of courage that went into constructing such things. Sign down in here. There's GERA, GERA, 925 Israel. Boy, oh boy. Yeah. Sorry I got lost in that for a second. Shouldn't apologize, but I didn't mean to stumble there and wait. Israel, GERA, yeah, these just do it for me, for Modernist. This buildup of just incredible energy that went into this, and completely hand constructed, and then a beautiful opal in the top of it, natural opal that has a lot of it's got a lot of pink and green, and on a ground of very pale blue, and out in the daylight it's really fantastic. Love that. So those two, and look at the size of them. They outdo anything that I traditionally wear. You can see how like giant my ring normally looks, and look at the size of those. Really fantastic. And before my body gets any shakier, because I do need to eat, this is rutilated? No, this is tourmalated quartz. I'm sorry. Tourmalated quartz. Those are tourmaline crystals. Tourmaline crystals in quartz, so it's tourmalated quartz. And leave it to Rachel to make this incredible, gigantic, where's the signature? I think this one's unsigned. Is this one the unsigned one? This one may be signed somewhere else. She sometimes doesn't put it right on the inside. Absolutely. Yeah, this one I think is unsigned. But not every GERA is, or GERA, however you pronounce it. I always say GERA. They don't have to be signed, just so you know. If you see that construction with that almost bean shape, and then these bars and this undercarriage and the thickness of the metal, there's always some sort of heft to these as well. Look how thick the silver is. She didn't spare any expense. And these are very little sizes when you find them. I mean, they're extremely small sizes for finger size. But look at the monumental quality of Rachel's work. I'll bring these back. I'll bring these 3 back for wearable sculpture video. And I so appreciate you tuning in. I hope I helped kind of define the first video of modernism in jewelry. And in the next video, it should probably be slightly more in depth. And maybe I'll focus, rather than just run through the design aesthetics of what modernism looks like. I hope this video helps out. Thank you so much for joining in. And you know, tomorrow's video is going to be action-packed as well, so please tune in. Thank you all for your kindness. Thank you all for trusting me. I really want to thank all of you for everything at this point in my YouTube career, because it is. You know how I end this, and I take a nice deep breath and I say, I love you because I do.